What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 game development live stream where we're back in our Deck Knight project, a game built from scratch using Unreal Engine 5, C++ blueprints, the gameplay ability system plugin, and of course all that good stuff. So today I want to kind of continue working on the bow and arrows resource loop, just because now we have a stat that controls our current and max arrows, and as you can see, there's 3 in our quiver. Now, see, this is controllable by stats, if I'm not mistaken. It should work where we have our attributes, we have our character, and we have our weapon attribute, which should have current bow and max bow count. So I can make it 10, for example, and then we have 10 arrows, and then I can make it 5, I can make it 2, but we're seeing it's not updating correctly in that sense, so we might have to fix that too. But I want to work on the resource loop in that I want to have some sort of passive ability that is driven, I think, as well by stats for, how long it takes for you to gain an arrow back, so that when you fire an arrow after whatever amount of time, you gain an arrow back. And then if you're performing an action or something, maybe we want to prevent arrows being given back. So if you're holding a charged arrow, for example, maybe we don't want you to be able to gain arrows back until you fire, for example. So we might need a way of pausing any sort of passives, and then I guess at that point resuming, I suppose. So let's first fix this issue with the arrows, because it's going to bother me. That's the kind of guy I am. So let's look at weapon base. That's where everything is. And then we're eventually going to have to also go and start moving more stuff to code. I made a little bit of a push to migrating stuff into C++, just for the sake of weapon trails. So I don't know how well it's going to be picked up on stream, but our daggers now have weapon trails. It's kind of cool when you do the charge spin. You see the weapon trails kind of spin around the player, kind of leaves like a dust thing around. Which I think looks pretty sick. So we're going to leave that for now. Maybe we'll have it update in color if you're have daggers that are on fire or something like that. But one thing at a time. So we have this logic here where we're basically removing weapon equipped instance, right? And we're only removing one instance, I suppose. So I guess what we have to do is actually iterate through, check if this is positive or not, and if it's positive, we do that. If it's not, we remove. So I think it has to be, so we're asking if it's greater than or equal to 0, which means we would add 1, but I mean, if it's the same, we don't really want to add or remove, right? If the difference is the same. So we'd have to check when that would ever be the case. Well, let's just see what happens here, right? So we have arrows. Let's just see if by using them we remove them correctly. So 1, 2, 3. Cool. Play again. Now let's go open up our debug, gameplay attributes, player. We have our current, so let's make it 5. So yeah. Oh yeah, current, I don't want to change that, but max, yes. So that's 5. Let's do 15. It's hard to tell how much you'll have truly, but I think it's still a nice little thing. As you can see, some clipping. I don't think that matters, especially from the distance that we're going to be working with. But let's just see if these things update. So I'm going to break it down to 5. Cool. I'm going to bring it down to 2, 1. 21, 1. Okay, that seems like that fixed the issue. Great. So what I want to do for sure, I want to create, because in our weapons we have an equip thing, because I want this thing to be happening while the weapon is equipped as well. So if you're focusing on the daggers and stuff like that, or your other primary weapon, I want you to be able to recharge in those cases as well. I don't really want you to force you to have the bow equipped in order for those things to passively come back for you. Let's get a bow weapon. We have this equipped ability. But I don't remember. Do we have both equipped abilities set? Yeah, we have equipped and active. So we have the attribute emitter, for example. If I want to make have a passive thing that increments by some value, right? And I guess that could also be a stat. So things that these cards that we have that we want to create can kind of hook into. So instead of regaining one bow, sorry, not one bow, like one arrow per second, you could be 2 or 3, or up until some maximum. Ideally, just the max number you can do. So it would be good to introduce that as a stat as well. So let's do a little bit of a update to our attribute set for the weapons. So typically system attribute sets, weapon, that's the base one. So yeah, max and current ammo. So we'll do a couple stats, right? So we'll do I always forget how to really name it. It's not really cooldown or period maybe, but let's say arrow. Arrow regeneration time. Are we able to put like meta for this? But I don't know. Just to describe it, or do I have to just put like a comment later? I don't know. But yeah, works for me for now. And then we'll say arrow regeneration count. And we can default some stuff, I think, as well. And maybe some bows that we have, some weapons can have some default values that they can alter by default. But yeah, let's try this. So all this is Gucci, I think. But yeah, when we get here, I think. What can we do? I don't know if it needs to be free attribute change. Good. Let's just do during the here. And we'll say get regeneration count attribute. And we'll say minimum 0. And then the max could be get max arrow count, right? So we'll know it can never be greater than that. And then we'll do the same thing for regeneration time. And we'll do a minimum of like 0.1 or something, and then maybe the max like 5 or just 5 seconds, right? And maybe there could be like enemy cards that kind of slow down your regeneration rate, or like minimize your total amount for the arrow, for example. So I think that's enough data to try to do something interesting and set up this passive. So I don't know if I want to do it on this stream or maybe later in the week, but I need to do some R&D on some references to how I could show arrow count in the UI. Because again, having it diegetically on the back with the number of arrows that you have, based on the camera position that we're going for, a further away camera and stuff, but that isn't something that's reliable or readable for the player. So we have to do something just on the HUD, right? And I don't think, I think it could still be in the world. If you think of things like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom, or Crimson Desert, you have the stamina bar that's kind of in, quote unquote, in the world. It's next to the player. It seems like it's attached to the player. I think it moves with the player. So maybe we could do something to that effect to kind of keep track of stuff. So we'll see. Maybe I would need to rename this one instead of it being a weapon attribute set. It could be like the bow attribute set, because it could just be a lot of stuff specific for the bow that maybe the player doesn't need all the time. Because maybe other weapons will need something unique to it as well, like dagger and sword shield. It might be worth renaming the asset later in the week before we kind of push forward with other mechanics. But yeah, makes sense, all good. So let's create our arrow passive. Add that entry, but we'll have to create a gameplay effect, so we'll just duplicate, I think. So GE, weapon, bow, arrow, regeneration. Yeah. So we're gonna have to sign in. Perforce. Good. How's everybody's week so far? That hasn't been too bad. We had to do some quarterly stuff at work, so there was a lot of discussions and talks and stuff like that. So luckily didn't have to, focus too much on implementation stuff the last day or two. For better or for worse. So yeah. And I think it would be interesting, like, because this quiver, for example, I think it is just a static mesh component, but it would be interesting to be able to, like, make some sort of pulse effect or something whenever we get a new arrow or something, in addition to the, like, UI stuff. But I'm curious if that could work. How expensive that would be in practice. But yeah, so there we go. We have our arrow regeneration. We are connected to version control. I think I just gotta mark that bad boy for add. There we go. So, what we need to do. It's not an instant effect for sure. It's gonna be infinite. For the period, we are gonna have a period. So what I don't like though is that period is a curve table row and not necessarily anything else. But then so it kind of eliminates like the point of the regeneration time. It's like if you have duration, it's still not the same. I can't remember if there's a way to have a period based off of an attribute, though. I guess not. So for now, we'll just make it 1 second just to have something. Execute periodic effect on application. No. So we need a couple of things to make this work, if I remember right. Because I don't think I would want to have an ability that tracks this passively. I think it can all be done. But maybe it would make sense for it to be an ability because I can listen to, I can have a delay and then I can apply and then like, let's see. Maybe I can make it as an ability. I'm not 100% convinced, but let's try. Because maybe it'll just make my life easier. So GA, weapon, bow, arrow. So bow, I'll say bow, and then arrow. Regeneration. And, this will be something that's passive, that's going to be granted. Get rid of that. Have to delete this, I think. And what do we do? Right. We need to make a timer, I think so. That timer, I handle, or timer, event. Excuse me. And then we need to also get some information from the get-go. So we can get quote attribute, I believe. This. So we also know, I guess technically we do need to initialize these things just to be safe. So 2 more modifiers we're going to be doing. Regeneration time, override. 1. Same thing, generation count, override. 2. 1. So that should be enough. So we should be able to grab this arrow regeneration time, put that into here, set it as looping, make the event generate arrow. Then I think we have, yeah, there's this modify bow weapon count. So we should have this that we can also be modifying by. So we can say we have the air, we have to plug in the event. The dispatcher, that store the handle, of course. So, and then every time we want to regenerate an arrow, what we do, right? We need to do a make spec, not like that. Make outgoing spec. Grab that custom modified bow thing. All seems to be fine. And now we need to what's the function called? Set by caller, so assign to that. Now let's look at the tag in our gameplay effect, data weapon count. Be simple enough. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. And then what are we gonna do it by? We're gonna do it by another float attribute by that count. To assign, or no, apply gameplay effect should be technically enough, I hope. But what else do I want to do? Like, I want to also be listening to some stuff, I assume. So, like, if I'm charging, for example, let me look at my weapon abilities, right? Weapon ability. No, not looking for that. What am I looking for? So, bow charge, so ranged, basic, special hold, right? So I would probably want to make a tag to block the stuff. And of course, I'm just going to do it in C++ because why not? So we got our native tags, but we'll need to go into header first. I mean, we can make a whole section for weapon tags, maybe. Oh, Lord. Okay, so we're going to do weapon tags. Do we declare gameplay tag stern? And we're going to say not weapon attribute, bow. So weapon underscore bow underscore block arrow regeneration. Fine. Then we got going here. We go down here. We could do like the one with comment, right? So let's just grab you. That. Grab the name actually. And then we're going to say weapon. Dot bow. Dot block. Dot arrow. So we could say when applied, arrow regeneration is blocked. Simple enough. So let's do a recompile of that. I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. And so yeah, the current problem then lies that I'm using this modify arrow count gameplay effect, right? And that's to modify it both in a positive and negative way, where I want to regenerate an arrow, but I also want to remove an arrow whenever I, use the bow, right? And so I can't have this tag as a blocker for it, so maybe I need to make a kind of clear difference between the two, where like there's an add one and then there's a remove one, so that I can kind of more cleanly say when it's blocked or not, because I don't want to necessarily block the use, like the decrement of it, but I do want to block the adding of it, if that makes sense. So maybe we can do that too. So there's this modify arrow count. I'm gonna make a duplicate. We're gonna do GE underscore regenerate. So GE bow, weapon bow regenerate arrow. So it's got a lot of the same data and setup, but I can at least specify this in that now, where I can say components. Fire tags. And we could say a couple things like ongoing and application required tags. We could say like bow. This, just to confirm that you have the bow. But then we could say like bow.block arrow regeneration, right? So, not here though. So must not have tags here. So you block it like that. So it has ongoing tag requirements. Oh yeah, so these are no-go because it's instant, right? So it has to be both in there. So thanks to that validator, that was pretty clutch. So no stacking, all that required stuff. Seems legitness. So let's go back to the ability for the regeneration. Let's just confirm some things here. So ability, activation on input triggered. We're gonna do on spawn, instant, all that stuff, empty, fine. We don't need any of that additional information. I'll commit on activate. I think it's all good. So what I want to do, for example, on hold, right? Activation own tags. I want to do block dot arrow, or was it bow dot block? Like I want to. So yeah, activation own tags. Probably need to change the hierarchy of that. Maybe status weapon or effect dot gameplay dot weapon. Well, there's secondary weapon, but maybe it's worth changing it. Effect dot gameplay, right? But then there's primary weapon, secondary weapon. So I don't know if it's effect or should be status, right? So maybe status dot weapon. So let's compile that. We'll have to update the gameplay effect accordingly as well. There. Okay. So update that. So status, weapon. Right. So we got that. Copy that. Save. Go back to hold. Put it in phone tags. Hopefully good. I think in theory this should work. So I also potentially I would want to also block it while I'm doing the basic shot. So let's just do it as a test. So that. Let's see. Oh. So GA weapon air regeneration. So so get granted by effect context get original instigator ability system component. So that's getting a crash. Okay. So get original instigator ability system component is failing. So I gotta see why. Go grab. Oh, yeah. Grab a screenshot of that. But gotta see why. Because it seems like, I guess I'm not passing in the ability system component when I'm granting the ability. And then this get granted effect context doesn't work. Let's just make sure we do things correctly. We're on the up and up. So that's weird. Not weird, but confusing, I suppose. So I know in the weapon, I'm doing it in there, the weapon base. Do I have it open? Yeah. So where's equipped? Equipped. Ability set? Yeah, this. So we go here and we go here, right? And we're passing in the ability system component, right? And we do give to ability system component. And then we get to the ability context. Do this, we do that. So it's weird. Do I have to also do ability spec? Ability one. What do I have to set here? Source object. Like, it seems like it would be fine. Curious as to why that fails. So activation on spawn, yeah. So we get here, get granted effect context. So I wonder if we even get there. So I'm assuming I'm not going to get that breakpoint. I'll need to do something else. Yeah, so it's going to be shitty to try to debug. Hey, thanks for the follow, Cozy, with a leaf. How you doing? Thanks for stopping in. So what I'll do, I'm going to put a breakpoint in, and I'm just going to have to kind of cut through to see where we're getting this information at and go from there. We were on a roll, but you know, now we hit a snag, so just gotta figure it out. Could it be a big deal? I don't know. Could be. So yeah, we'll put a breakpoint in blueprints when we're granting the equipped ability set, and then we'll just kind of have to dig in. So we'll start with the ability set, which we get. So we should hit this breakpoint first. Right? So boom, boom, boom. So add equipped ability set. I'm going to put a breakpoint. We'll play. We're here. We're here. Ability system component seems all fine. Character is all good. Seems fine. And then I'll go here. I'll get rid of that breakpoint. We gotta dig in here. So we go here. So we skip over. Maybe I needed to put it here. So we'll go here. So ability index 0. Okay. So if, then we can kind of, I think that'll just bypass. Yeah, we got the CDO. And we give ability. So that seems fine. So we go to give ability. Get in here. Fine. Fine, fine, fine. Create new instance on give ability. Here. Okay. So we don't get This doesn't pass. It's a primary instance of non-give ability. Then we get on-give ability. Get here. Okay, so basically, at this next line, we just got to crash, right? So we have spec. We have the spec handle, source object, player state, activation info, dynamic ability tags. So the gameplay effect handle. So I feel like this isn't necessarily always safe. So maybe what we need to do is, so if or can I say, maybe we could say that you ability system component instigator ASC equals I'll grab this, but I could say get granted something to that effect. And then maybe that's okay. Let's see. Because I could potentially reuse instigator ASC over here. So I'm also like, because yeah, the source tag is that information. Because maybe, like, I'm curious as to where I would need to set that information. In here, you know what I mean? We'll take it one bit at a time. So let's see if that for one did anything. We get a crash. Okay. We don't. So far, so good. Now we have the gameplay ability. So let's see if we get this. We do. But in theory, like, as I'm shooting this stuff, after like 1 second, yeah, it comes back in. So the weird thing is it all popped in at one time. So I'm gonna just do this. I want to see one, yeah, bam. So regeneration, set arrow regeneration count. So why is that 3? It's a good question. Let's look at the emitter. So arrow regeneration count is 1. Arrow regeneration count. Arrow override to 1. Why is it 3? Am I doing something weird? Let's look at regeneration. So this is current bow. What seems fine. Oh no. Oh yeah. So regeneration arrow. I don't know why this is set to override though. We need to just do add. But the same thing for when we're using it. So modify. It is override. That's a weird thing. I'm just gonna add. No, wait. I'm trying to remember. Okay, I think for this one it's fine that it's override because I'm doing the modifying myself. But over there, not so much. So let's try again. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Bam. Like, yeah, that's a bizarre thing. So maybe it's with the count in weapon base. Let's look at the numbers first. So I know probably what I'm doing wrong, but let's see. So current weapon. So I shoot 2, 2, 1, 0. And then yeah, I get. So I do get 3 immediately. What if I make this 1? I just want to see what happens. Am I crazy? Not the dummy player. So where is our weapon set? So 3, 2, 1, 1, 2. And then yeah, it doesn't go higher than 2. Which is also strange. Let's see. So weapon count, we did this bow, right? So we're adding add base, yeah. Current weapon count. So why is arrow regeneration? That's the first question. Why is arrow regeneration count set to 3? Because yeah, time is also 3. And arrow regeneration count is also 3. So something is fucked up. Is it because? Oh, I don't think I copied anything. Because yeah, these are set to 3. And these are set to 1. So what if I make this 2 and recompile? Do I see 2? No. Is it because set them to 1 by the... Oh, wait, hold on. I think I know. Let's look. Where's that? There. Where's the weapon attribute set? Is it because of this logic? Yeah, it's this one. So that's my bad. So this one's regeneration count. Oh yeah, we were doing the wrong value there, so it'll be back to normal. I hope. I gotta work on my motion warping tutorial soon. I feel like I have some good information to share with that. Boom, 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 ba, da, ba, da. The way I'm modifying stuff, that doesn't make any sense. We're setting it to 1 each time, right? Am I crazy? Oh no, okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm good, I'm good, I'm smart. No, I'm not, but yeah, okay. So I'm hoping we will see values that make sense now. So let's double check, let's look at our attributes, and we'll go from there. Weapon, yeah, so 2, 1. Obviously, we can update our emitter back to normal, make these 1. We could probably also add these entries, just so everything's kind of in the up and up. Curve, so we'll do default bow. Oh, down. Copy that. Oh god, oh god. Everything's fine, just to be sure. Regeneration time. And let's look at 1 each. That. Okay. Back to the emitter. This is regeneration time. So I hope now. So we have 3. I'll start shooting. So 1, 2. So it doesn't seem like it's going past 2. So it's not going past 1. I'm curious. Is this happening still? It is. So is there some weird clamping going on? I mean, we're in this attribute set anyway, so we should be able to say. So this isn't being called, which is interesting. So the only way it's blocked is if, yeah. So just, I don't know why I stopped playing. So something is not going on. So, oh, yeah, this is bad. We don't want to gate it with the tag if it's active, right? Because that defeats the purpose. Kind of like what we talked about earlier, where even if you don't have the bow equipped, we want you to passively bring back those arrows, right? So let's get rid of that and let's just start shooting. 1, 2, 3, right? Yeah, we want to block regeneration. Looks like it's good. And I want to like reset the timer as well. So I'm going to do a wait for gameplay. No, wait for tag. Wait, tag added. Block. Error generation. We can just do it. This is a ability task that should clean itself up, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. And then wait tag removed, I guess. Different one. Wait tag removed. Tag. Could also make this a variable just to be cool. So nice. Over here. There. And what we'll do is with the handle, whenever this is created, we could just, you know, as always, we could say, when we say pause, no, well, I mean, pause is fine, right? Pause timer. So I could always just also here and invalidate timer handle, or can I say unpause? It would be nice if you want to say unpause, but like reset as well, but maybe that's the point of it. So we can just say clear and validate timer by handle. We'll do a check as valid just to be, as usual, super safe about this stuff. You never know, but you know, good practice, maybe not necessary. There we go, nice and clean. And then we'll do the same thing. So we don't really care that if it's not valid or not. We could just say, can we say, I guess we could switch this to a value, not value, but make this an event. Custom event, update regeneration timer handle. Hopefully that's Gucci. And we could just do this here. We could just like that. And I guess I could just do that down here, right? So I could also do custom event, clear, generation. Spell. Fine. Whoop. Little cheeky little functions here, or events I should say. So let's compile those things over here. Again, all these stuff are async tests in the ability, so it should be okay. Maybe on end ability I could just clear and validate timer handle just to kind of be safe. So clear handle. Stuff here. It doesn't have to be super organized. It's a small ability. Now, I also want to wait attribute change. The attribute I want to explore, of course, we can just make a variable. We could say regeneration time. We don't have to set it, but why did I promote that? Do that. Only trigger once? No. Target actor. Just need to get the owner. What is it? Get owning actor. Yeah. Be able to do something like that. And then if it, whenever it's changed, obviously also let's make sure we put the right attribute after we compile. We can do regeneration. Whoop. Time. And then we could just say, hey, whenever it's changed, we're going to clear timer. And it'll just read the new information when we set the timer by event, right? So I think that's everything. Where am I compiling this here? Let's take a look. So 1, 2, 3. And then I would probably want to have maybe some punishment for reaching at 0. I don't know, but let's do 1. maybe I want to also have it on the release, the block. So, anyways, for a little bit later. Special release. We can also do this, right? Seems good. That what doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm using the arrow, but it's not being taken away. And also, when I have one arrow left, I can't charge it, which is also interesting. That's also a bug I'll need to fix. Okay, so a couple bugs. We'll see what we can iron out in the next 15-20 minutes. Well, at least we're seeing some behavior stuff, which is cool. So let's go into the ranged state tree, because I think I know where the first problem lies. So when we attempt to transition from basic range special hold, we have a condition for that only. But do we have... Yeah, we have this enter condition. So I don't know if the enter condition needs to exist here, but more as part of maybe the transition condition from basic. Because like if we go from into basic from here, it should be fine. But when we try to go from idle, maybe that's where the condition needs to be, which is what we're doing, I think. Let's go to hold triggered. Yeah. So I think that should be enough. I don't know if necessarily there needs... Like, this could be fine here for the basic. Well, let's just see if that works. So 1, 2... And yeah, we can go in. But now when I let go, I can't do it either. Okay, so... No, so this again, this enter condition isn't needed, right? So... Overdid it with the enter conditions, which is fine. And there you go, right? And then 1, 2, and then 3. So it is also constantly changing, which isn't good. So gameplay attributes, what's happening? Anything? Nothing, right? So I think it's because... I guess I shouldn't... Maybe I can also do a check inside of here. Where before we even try to regenerate an arrow, we could just check. Are we at max, right? So we can do... A is current less than max. It's a function, I guess. So boom. We can regenerate row. Do pure const. Pass in a boolean or pass out a boolean. Be like out or just b and regenerate. So unnecessarily doing all that stuff. So we should be able to gate that a little bit better. Branch, just so we're not constantly applying, right? So should be cleaner. So that's good. But also at the same time in here, we should probably check. It's like at the same time, this absolute value should be saying false, I'd imagine. So I'm curious as to why that doesn't. So let's remove this gating just for the sake of testing for a second here. Because if we look, yeah, it's constantly moving. So that tells me, you know, we get here, right? So new value, old value. So for what? Okay. So we are getting that, but I guess it's because we're doing it on gameplay effect change. So this tells me we're getting 4, and then we clamp it back down to 3. Or maybe we have to do it as well in here. I'm curious. Let's see. So we'll let that compile, and then I hope this will work. And then, because I think that was the only other problem for now, quote unquote, that we had an issue with. But then, yeah, we can look into seeing if we can make some interesting material for whenever you're regenerating something that goes over the quiver. Maybe that would be pretty cool. Maybe even something more special when it's full. And then we can potentially have some interesting stuff where we can have passives or buffs or whatever you want to call them for, like, you know, your last arrow does like 10 times more damage, or your first arrow does whatever amount of damage, or, you know, as you're firing arrows, the damage increases or something. Yeah, let's go into the weapon base. I'll first do this, and let's just see. So already a problem. So under pre-attribute change, so doesn't seem like it's there. Okay, but let me try post attribute change. But we can also look at some of the other attribute sets. So like in health. Okay, so yeah. Oh, okay. Me stupid. Here we go. Let's stop. We'll put it back here. But we're gonna do new value. I think that's not necessary. Okay, let's try it one more time. Yo, 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 what's up, dead crackers? How's it going? I'm doing good. Hanging out, working on some bow and arrow mechanics. Appreciating being alive, you know what I mean? Finish my zero sugar monster. Because the next step that I want to do, like I said, you know, before you were watching, I want to have some effects that play when, you know, you regain an arrow and you generate all arrows. Just have some diegetic ways of knowing how much arrows you have left, but UI stuff later. I actually seen some of your videos before. I haven't touched C++ yet. Explain the cards and gameplay a little bit. Yeah, sure, no problem. So let me just load everything in. Hopefully there's no crashes. We'll see. Or insurers. But yeah, the basic idea is, you know, you have these cards. Oh, okay, so still a problem. Whoopsie. But essentially, you have cards, and it's basically a mix of a deck builder and real-time action combat, where you use cards to amplify your abilities. So you can give yourself active abilities, passives, instant effects, summons, and stuff like that. So you kind of build a deck around the types of primary and secondary weapons you have. And as you go along, you get stronger cards, and you have to kind of balance out what cards you have over how much resources you can spend. And you fight waves of enemies, stronger enemies, and you kind of push in that direction to get stronger and stronger for each run. So of course it's a roguelike, like everything else, you know. But I'm trying to balance, like, I'm trying to challenge the player into balancing out how to strategize with the cards, how to use those cards in synergy with your like mechanical skills of attacking, evading, and how you amplify yourself up to for more survivability. You play the cards in real time, yeah. So as soon as I can correctly do this, let me just grab this. Hoping that's valid. Third time's the charm. So yeah, you build a deck, you draw cards, you can only have a certain number of cards in your hand at a given time. And so as you're playing cards, you'll draw new cards, and then when you run out of cards, I'm still not 100% sure what would happen. Either, you know, you have to wait till all the abilities and passes are up, or after you've run out of cards, it'll reshuffle and kind of you start over. And as you're playing the game, and you know, you're playing, you know, again, you know, you're fighting, killing enemies, doing all the cool stuff. You're earning card resources, and these are the resources you spend to actually activate the card. So when you activate the card, you can slot active abilities into these slots, and then you can activate them later as some sort of abilities, or you can slot them into passive slots where, you know, you could have a card that says, you know, for example, for 10 seconds, every time you fire an arrow, it's for free. You don't spend resources on it, for example, or like the next 5 arrows are fire arrows or something to that effect. And so you can kind of balance out when you're drawing these cards, when you want to use them. And you try to maybe construct a deck based off these ideas, where it's like, hey, I want a primarily fire build, so I'll have cards that let me play more fire arrows, or let me do more fire damage, or help me propagate fire statuses and stuff like that. And then goal of the enemies, and because the enemies will have these waves of enemies, but on top of those waves of enemies, there's another player, quote unquote, where it's an upper level AI that's also playing cards that amplify their mobs and try to counteract your cards and try to debuff you and things like that. So it's trying to challenge you on a couple different layers that way. Okay, so finally, no crash, great. Are we seeing the arrows updating constantly? No, great. And we're shooting, and do we regain one? Yeah, we do. So yeah, so now we see the arrows being spent and regained in the quiver as you're firing them. And then 1, 2, and 3. So seems like we're okay. Let me just see if there's any repercussions to that when I modify the attributes. The weapon attributes. So if I make this 10, we have 10 arrows. Let's see. Yes, it does look like 10. And then I make this 5, 3, 2. Yep, seems good. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a lot of AI setup. I need to try to, be smart about how I set up AI. It's definitely, I don't think I need to have super duper sophisticated AI. I definitely want to have simple AI behaviors, simple archetypes that blend different types of archetypes, like ranged, healers, debuffers, chargers, flyers, all those different archetypes that I need to double check my research on, but we had a talk at work about all these different archetypes that games have. So kind of pinpointing interesting combinations of enemies that kind of challenge you in different ways and try to counteract you in different ways, and then you have that upper level AI that is more sophisticated. So if it knows you're using a lot of fire-based things, maybe it can have some cards that counteract that. Or because I want to follow the idea of Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, where you have trainers or other players that have a theme surrounding them too. So, if you're going to be going up against another pyro themed enemy guy, he could have stuff that debuffs fire intentionally because he wants to weaken stuff so his stuff can be stronger. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't know yet. I'm still working on some very low level systems for the player, like these different weapons. So right now we have the bow and arrow, and we have the daggers. So, you have this, basic dagger combo, and you have a hold ability, and you go flying like that. It does some special stuff. I need to work on that loop. And then once I understand what that dagger does truly, I can then integrate some new cards for the dagger. Right now, my thought is, as you're dealing damage with the dagger, you could be applying some sort of stacks of some sort of effect. And then when you do the charged attack on enemies based on the number of stacks that enemy has, the damage is amplified. So, you're kind of motivated to kind of spread out the damage between different enemies, or stack heavily on one and then charge for a bigger payoff. I'm also thinking about maybe the dagger could propagate status effects. So, for example, if this guy was burning, you could do this attack and then you become on fire, and then your damage is then fire based, and you can kind of propagate fire damage outwards, and that could be the kind of loop for the dagger or some lane for it. And then I need to introduce sword and shield, and then I want to introduce great sword. And then once I have the great sword mechanics in, I want to, focus more then on AI. Additionally, for the daggers, there's this this blocking move, which I want to be able to maybe deflect projectiles. That's what it can mainly do. So you go be like, boom, 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 and just shoot projectiles back at enemies, but it can't block physical attacks or something. And then the sword and shield can block everything, but it doesn't have but you can also, it gives you a parry or something. And then the great sword, you can absorb hits, and it charges your great sword, and then the heavy attack of the great sword gets amplified in damage and radius and stuff based on how much stuff you have charged in there. So things I've been playing around with. We'll have to just see how it ends up going. But yeah, right now you have some cards as a basic card. You can grant yourself card that turns into a fireball, and then when you activate it, you then become a fireball for a couple seconds. And then, I created a system where I can just kind of give myself more resources, so I can grant stuff, and then you can have like a stacks of the number of cards you have. Blah, blah, blah. Just a viewer question, no big deal. How are you handling your combo buffering? Is the logic within the gameplay ability? It's a good question. So the combo stuff I'm doing in state tree for the player. So state tree and then dagger, for example. I'm doing it here. And I'll make this a little bit bigger for you guys. So I have a global task that listens for inputs, and I use them as part of state tree transitions. So you have the evade attack, which requires that you're doing the evasive maneuver. So when you do a dodge, and you do that special attack, right? And then as you're going through the combo, melee combo 1, it buffers and transitions to 2, to 3, and to 4. And then from any of these stages, you can go to the melee heavy hold. And what's good about this is because it's a state tree, things are stateful, and I have a custom state tree task that lets me, it basically reads the parameters of the gameplay ability, exposes them as parameters of the state tree, and then I can bind data into that, which is then copied into the ability when it's granted and activated, so that I can set up, for example, the tag for the attack. And then the attack is written into a chooser table, which maps the montage to the tag. And then in the montage, you have the basic stuff, right? You have the markup for our melee trace system. You have the motion warping stuff. You have our input buffering. You have the weapon trails, which is like the visual trails that you'll see for the dagger. So like as I'm swinging these things, you'll see like a slight trail from both weapons. And you'll see it a lot with the charge. You'll see this kind of dust stuff come in. So you go from combo to combo, and then you have a transition into like the defensive action. So when you press block, you just boop, 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 boop. So I find it useful. So it's sort of a gameplay ability, but it uses state tree to kind of guide how the combo works and how they kind of flow into each other. If you don't want to use state tree, there's other ways to do it. I remember when we were prototyping stuff, we would use a data table. So I would kind of know which row you're on based on the tag you have and kind of just transition to each one. But state tree is, I think, a perfect solution for that. So every time basically when we give you the weapon, it takes the state tree and injects it. And then we basically use this input listener just to basically show how it flows. So for example, if I use the rewind debugger and we listen to it, you'll see this stuff on the side. So you can kind of just see how things are transitioning into each other, right? So as I'm going through the combos, like that, and then, defensive action, and then evade, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a lot of tooling for it, debugging for it. So it's definitely a lot of useful stuff. So that's how we're handling it. And the same thing goes for the ranged, right? So we have the ranged attack, the basic attack, the hold attack, all that stuff. So this is brilliant, and my first time seeing state tree. I'm using sections of montage, but I'm somewhat new to Unreal. I will research state tree, thank you. No problem, but yeah, take it with a grain of salt. State tree is still, still very new, and they're still making some updates. Like, we're working a lot with state tree at work, so I'm very familiar with it, and I kind of know what I need to be doing and figuring it out. Is state tree long to set up in C++? Not necessarily. You just got to create a state tree and give your character a state tree component, and then you need to just give it a state tree. So, for example, I think it's either in my player controller or in the player state. Let me double check. So, yeah, it's in my player controller. So, for example, it's the player state tree component. So I did make my own state tree component, but there's nothing special in it. And then from there, I grant this state tree here, the state tree player parent. And then I'm running a state that has parallel state tree stuff. So whenever I grant a primary weapon, which is like the daggers or the sword and shield, I override that state tree based off this tag and inject, for example, this dagger state tree, right? And then the same thing for the secondary weapon, which is like the bow. When I grant that, it overrides it. So eventually, if we have different secondary weapons, like a staff or something projectile based, we can do the same thing. Let me set that all back to normal. What's your plan for the game's visuals? I'm going to start learning post-processing and lighting techniques to make the fab assets work together. Like, for me, like, I like the stylized, like, style. You know, I want something high fantasy, very simple, just so it gives us more flexibility on what we're doing. Because I don't want to go into an art style which then kind of makes the high fantasy hard to sell. So that's why I like the stylized thing. So I can, if I wanted to, like, create a fire tornado, and it would kind of fit with the style as long as it has that aesthetic. But I haven't really thought too much on it. But it's a good question, Talos. So, like, something I need to kind of keep thinking about. So yeah. And so, for example, if I then, I think it's in my player weapon, I think. Yeah, so I've my player weapon component. So right now I have daggers, for example, but if I switch the sword and shield base, don't judge me, there's no shield yet. I have to update stuff, we'll do later. So yeah, I need to actually override it in the elf character. So if I do sword and shield base, now I have a sword. And also, I use choosers to update the idle animation. I'll have to do the same thing with the locomotion sets. But now we have, you know, a different combo, right? So bam, 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 and then a different hold, which, you know, we'll be updating later and doing stuff differently. And we have, you know, a different evade attack and all of that stuff. And obviously, we can deal damage, so. So once we introduce sword and shield instead of just a normal sword, we know we'll have a different combo set. And we'll have actually a defensive action and all that stuff. So, and then, you know, we have other systems like hit stops. We have the damage numbers. We have the damage pipeline in place. And what I really like about our damage pipeline, we put a lot of effort into it as well. And into our IM GUI to kind of show this information. So I can look to see my player. I can see the damage I've done, damage applied. And we could do physical damage, and we could just see all the data regarding all the damage events that we've done. And if we wanted to, we could simulate the damage as well. So I could just press simulate, and I'm just doing the 3 damage constantly. So a lot of effort as well for that, because I knew, like, I think I'm finally seeing a little bit of the fruits of the labor of some of these systems, where we'll be able to see if something was a critical damage, if we have lifesteal mechanics. Another feature that I'm working on for the weapons is to have, you know, because I want to have different types of weapons. So like a basic dagger, but then like fire dagger or something like that. You know, when I have, whoops, I did daggers base, I need dagger default. So when I have the daggers equipped, I have 3,000 health, but when I switch the bow, I have 100 again. So it's just a simple example of like active ability set information. So when the actual weapon is activated, we can do some things for it. So we can say, hey, while the daggers are active, you have 10 times, you know, 10% more damage or 10% more defense or increased health or something. And then when you switch to the bow, these things are removed. So you kind of might have to balance when these weapons are activated. One thing I'm questioning is if I need to have an automatic unequipping and equipping, you know what I mean? Or should we say, hey, you know, you shot the bow, you keep the bow until you decide to, like, do the other attack, you know? Because then it causes some issues where you can, like, interrupt the equips and you get some weird funky stuff. So, for example, like, I don't know if I'll be able to reproduce it. But yeah, that's my signal that you're trying to fire with no arrows. So but maybe we'll figure it out. Like, and again, the camera angle I'm also going for is like a top-down kind of thing. So some of the stuff may not be super duper readable from such a distance. So like, I'm thinking like this far away should be good. And so that's why I kind of want to add a material effect on like either the bow or the quiver, or on both, or something like that. But yeah, the next thing I want to do, we'll do it next stream because we're out of time right now, is the charge. Right now it shoots like 10 projectiles, which doesn't really make sense. I want it to be based on how much you have in your quiver, but also these projectiles bounce, so you can get. Oh God! Uh-oh. Oh, it was just a breakpoint. My bad. Oh God. So we can apply damage, but yeah, our arrows, they do ricochet, so you see a bunch of bounces and it does fire damage, and we have burn. So you can do some really cool devastating stuff if you kind of make the build the way you need to, where you have the cards right where you need them. Obviously, yeah, there's still some bugs, the guy's still burning, but we're making some cool progress, and I'm looking forward to kind of continuing this. I don't know where the line's going to be for when we kind of put out some sort of demo. I just want to feel more confident in the card and deck building loops and stuff like that. Like, I might just put out a demo for just the general game feel of stuff. Like, I made up the audio, I'm lacking a lot of the VFX, and all the art and the visuals come from Fab. I do some tweaks here and there to adjust some timings, or some visuals, but yeah, overall that's the gameplay logic and the code is what I'm handling. So but yeah, that's what I'm going to call it. So thanks, guys, for chatting with me. It's much appreciated. If you aren't already following me here on Twitch, make sure to follow on Twitch, and do the same on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Feel free to join our Discord. Again, a small community so far on Discord, but definitely feel free to join if you want to try learning, ask questions, share knowledge with each other, and hopefully we can all grow together. How many of us are watching on Twitch? So we got 3 people on Twitch, so I won't really raid anybody. So thanks for your support. Thanks for chatting with me. We'll be back hopefully on Thursday. So until then, enjoy your night, and I will see you soon. Oh, okay, cool. If you're a sound engineer, if you need some help, music too. Thanks, Dead Crackers. I appreciate that. I'm definitely looking for help, but I honestly can't pay anything. So if you're still interested and want to hook up, like, feel free to join the Discord. We can figure something out if you want to do anything, but no pressure either way. So enjoy your night, guys. I'll see you soon.